Remembering a political icon. Senator John McCain died Saturday afternoon at his home in Arizona after a year-long battle with brain cancer, glioblastoma, but not without leaving an indelible mark on American politics. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy on the late Senator McCain.
There's times we disagreed,
right,
but I respected his ability, what he did. Even though he was home getting treatment, I've talked to Congressman Mac Thornberry, the chairman of Armed Services, when they're walking through the NDAA. He's getting his treatment, but Senator McCain would be right there doing the work. He knew exactly what was going on. There's no one that understood the military better, or the idea of what happens around the world. When we would travel to other countries and sit with those leaders, there was always a person they'd ask about, and it was John McCain, because they knew him personally and they trusted him. And that helped America's foreign policy around the world during all different eras and different times.
Here now is former McCain presidential campaign chief strategist Charlie Black. Charlie, good to see you. Tell me a story.
Morning,
I always tell people when someone passes away that all Americans knew John McCain from watching him on television, just watching his life and career unfold. But tell us a story about the senator that you think best remembers him.
Well, there could be very many, Dagan, but you know, in addition to being the champion of freedom for the whole world and being a champion for regular order and bipartisan compromise in the Senate, he was a terrific friend. He was a championship friend to many, many people. Somebody said over the weekend that there were over 100 people who considered John their best friend. And you know what? He had the capacity to be the best friend to that many people. I traveled with him a lot during campaigns, especially during the '08 presidential campaign. And among my duties is I was his debate coach. Now, when you're in a presidential debate, all the primary debates or the general election debates, you have time limits on what you can say. Sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 60, sometimes it's more. And believe me, trying to get John McCain to discipline himself to 30-second and 60-second messages was not easy. But he would do the work. Sometimes we'd have to push him to cut the time. And he would, you know, about the third time I would say, John, you got to take these words out or shorten it this way, he'd say, I got it. I got it. When he said he had it, he had it. And that meant you better shut up and move on to the next question.
Charlie, this is Lee Carter.
Hey,
I
Lee.
have been just fascinated watching the remembrances of all people across the aisle. And so many people have been quoting the president, Senator McCain, and how he just rose above the fray, how he reached out, was friends with so many people on the left as well. And I think there's sort of a sentimentality right now of people saying, I wish we could make that happen. Do you see anyone that's close to the senator, or anyone who he might have been grooming, or anyone who has that same heart and capacity for bipartisanship, for nonpartisanship, for getting things done and really standing up for what's right?
Well, you know, John mentored dozens of other senators in both parties, and he always expressed his belief that we should use regular order in the Senate, meaning compromise in the committees, come out with a bipartisan bill that achieves reforms and that the Senate and the Congress could pass. So in the course of that, sure, there are plenty of people who think like he did. To give you a few examples, and not meaning to be exhaustive, obviously Lindsey Graham believes the same way, Senator Tom Cotton, Senator John Thune, even some Democrats. You remember that John worked very closely with Joe Biden on a number of things. Vice President Biden will be speaking this week at one of the memorial services. But other Democrats, Senator Amy Klobuchar, who may well run for president, who, if you had to have a Democrat for president, she'd be a pretty good one, also worked with John on a bipartisan basis and believed in these things. So John McCain is not replaceable by one person, but he will be replaced by several people who will step up and take on the role that he played.
Charlie, can we ever recapture, though, I listened to a lot of the commentary over the weekend about John McCain's ability to reach across the aisle and really work from his own moral center and do, again, to do what is right. rather than what is expected or what is will mean the most political gain for him. And I heard a lot of people on the left saying, yes, Republicans should follow the John McCain and reach across the aisle, when in fact I think it's people in the Republican Party who need to talk to their own, and people in the Democratic Party who need to talk to their own about bipartisanship and coming together. How do you see it?
Well, that's right, Dagan. I mean, listen, what it takes is political will and leadership. Leadership where you're willing to take political risk to work with the other party. And it can be done. There are a lot of people that in both parties that are willing to do it. But if the leadership of each party in the Senate or the House is holding them back, then it's going to be hard to do. But yes, it can be done. Listen, there have been many occasions, especially on big spending bills, where Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer would make a deal, and we'd get things done. We do fund the government every year, which ends up being a bipartisan deal. So just more people who know what to do need to step up, take the political risk, and show the leadership.
But among the rank and file voters in this country, I don't know if we've ever seen polarization this great, and vitriol. Some of the things that were said online on the left and on the right over the weekend were, quite frankly, appalling.
Well, I agree that we have more polarization than ever. That's because over the last couple of decades, Democrats have become more liberal, Republicans have become more conservative. But we still occasionally get together and get things done. Social media is a mixed blessing. The 24-hour cable news is a mixed blessing in terms of more opportunities for people to say negative things and widen the gap rather than get together and work together. But we can overcome that. John overcame it many times on different kinds of legislation, and others can step in and overcome it.
Charlie, just on a personal note, my prayers and blessings to the entire McCain family, Cindy and Megan, who I know well. But I want to thank them, and this is something small yet really big, that they were really revealing about his cancer battle, the type of cancer that he was fighting, and they did it, and sharing that at a time when a lot of people who are battling such a devastating, deadly disease, they don't really talk about it and they don't share it. And it really does, as you know, my mother is battling stage 4 lung cancer. It does lift us all up, and I just wanted to say that out loud to send the message to everybody who is facing cancer and fighting it. As a family, by sharing your family's fight, you really are sharing in everyone's fight. And I wanted to thank them for that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dagan. The grace and courage that Cindy McCain and Megan have shown throughout this battle is unbelievable. And as we celebrate John's life this week, we should all hold up a great amount of honor to Cindy and the family.
Indeed. Charlie Black, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you,
very much. And we'll have a week of celebrations of the life of John McCain, with him lying in state at the Arizona Capitol, lying in state in the nation's capital, in the Capitol building, his funeral service in Washington on Saturday morning. Then he'll be laid to rest at the Naval Academy.